Hey, Wembug World Entertainment, and yes, we are about to do the review for Masters of the Universe. I'll do a non-spoiler. I might get into a bit of spoilers by the end, but I'll give you fair warning if I do. The one thing about the movie to put out there straight away is there's not one, not two, but there is three post-credit scenes in this. So when the movie actually ends where you think it's ending, and it gives you the name, that's when you first get the name. Like, it doesn't immediately go to credits and then give you the name. It ends, kind of gives you the name. It goes to a scene there. Then it goes through some of the credits and then gives you the name again, if I remember correctly. And then there's another scene there, and then there is a post-credit scene. So there is three to stick around for if you're going to go and see this movie. Now, I'll also say the visual effects look a hell of a lot better on the big screen than they did in the trailers. So whether or not they worked on that, I don't know. But they look much better. There's still a few iffy bits, like Cringer looks still quite digital when he's interacting with people. When he's not interacting with people, he looks fine. But when he is interacting, it does look a bit off. A small bit. Now, it's been a long ass time since I watched the cartoon, so I couldn't quite remember every character's name and stuff, which have pulled up here, so I can remember the most of them that were there. There's a few in there that was the name they don't bring up and I can't remember the name of. But they all looked great. Like, the effects on them and stuff, the suits they were wearing, they all looked great. But it's just one of those, because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, like the actual cartoon of He-Man, I didn't remember that Cringer could speak. I still don't even remember him speaking in the original cartoon. So, you'd assume he did, but yeah, he does speak. Now, overall, what are my feelings on this movie? I had a great time with it. I thought it's great fun. It's funny. It takes the action and the seriousness of the consequences of the action to, like, they take that serious. They don't piss about with that. After certain parts of it, they do kind of inject a little bit of humor, but obviously that's mainly with Skeletor, and I think that's to benefit kids because he is very menacing in this movie. His voice is clearly altered. Now, Jared Leto seems to be putting on a voice which almost at times sounds like he's trying to do a bit of a British voice, but overall you can definitely hear they modulate the voice, which makes sense because they're doing it to where he obviously doesn't have lips, so that is clearly why they do it. But I had great fun with this movie, and I think especially families, I think they'll have a blast with this. There's a lot of stuff in there, especially not just for us old farts who grew up watching the original cartoon and stuff, but for the parents. Like, they immediately take the piss out of the name Fisto. Between Fisto and Ram Man, there's a moment in here which is very much for the parents who are going to bring kids, because Fisto basically screams out like, let's fist the bad guys. And it says then to Ram Man, he's like, and Ram Man, give them head, because he rams them with his head. And it's just like, oh. So there is stuff like that. There are a few things that are a bit the kid who plays young Prince Adam doesn't really, he's not great. Now, that's not the kid's fault. He is like only 10 or something, or at least he's playing a 10-year-old. I think he's meant to be 10, but it's probably the kid's first role, and he's not great in the role, but there's not much of him. But it's just he's just a bit flat for the stuff that happens around him. He gets a little flat, and the character of, what's her name, Susie, his boss, the black woman. Now, again, there's not a hell of a lot of her either, but she is written, and I think they did it purposely, but it stands out like that this is how people are being written in our entertainment today. Is she's meant to be like this, I'm trying to be friendly, but I'm meant to be stern. I'm your boss, but I want to be your friend, and I don't like conflict and stuff. And it's just the way she talks and acts and stuff is head melting, because it is how you hear a lot of young people nowadays speak. And it's like, God, you're annoying. They're not on Earth very long. So the one thing about this movie to keep in mind is the action does not let up. There's not a hell of a lot of breathing room. Now, they do give you breathing room here and there, but the pace of this movie just goes. It starts off and it just goes. And it's great that it does that. And it does not feel like you're sitting there all day watching this thing, which that's a real credit. Like, something is constantly happening to keep you interested. So it starts off with him on Eternia as the kid. He gets sent to Earth. The Earth stuff is pretty much all in the trailer. You're only on Earth for, I don't even know if it's a full 10 minutes. I think it might even be less before Tila shows up and the Beast shows up. And then you're straight on back to Eternia. And it just goes from there, and it just continues to keep going. And it was great the way it did it. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, it never lets up. It does let up from time to time. And as I said, when it does, it's usually in moments that are like full of heart and seriousness moments. And it stops and reflects on that. So, like, Duncan, aka Man at Arms, like, he fails at the beginning of the movie, and where at least he sees in his eyes that he failed, and pretty much becomes a broken ass drunk. And you know, the reflection between him and Tila, which he's Tila's father. Now, I don't remember whether Man of Arms was Tila's father in the cartoon and stuff, but he is in this. I'm pretty sure he was, but he is in this. And they're back and forth, but the humor's lands, and it lands really well. Not so much the very beginning. And what I mean by that is He-Man is narrating the opening of it, and he's kind of talking. Now, it makes it, I won't spoil the kind of reveal of the narration, because you do get a reveal of the narration. That is where it lands, but when the humor, like the weird little kind of jokes he puts in while he's talking, don't really land and work, because you're not seeing what he's talking about really. In term, again, I'm not going to spoil that, but you'll see what I mean. But when you're just seeing like Eternia, you're flying over Eternia and you're seeing the people and stuff, and then he starts kind of talking and dropping in little humors, it doesn't quite land at that moment, but everything else does. Especially when you're kind of seeing him interact with the likes of Tila and Cringer and all these things. It really, especially when he starts interacting with and meets the likes of Goatman, of course Fisto and Chopjaw and all of these guys, and Mechneck is in there. When he starts giving them all their names and stuff, it works great. So the humor is great. The action is great as well. The vehicles and stuff look great. But of course, one of the main things everyone will be wondering, Skeletor. How does Skeletor play in this? He's fantastic in this. He really is. And the best part is, you could sit back and not even realise that it was Jared Leto, because he doesn't look like Jared Leto. He doesn't sound like Jared Leto. He doesn't act like Jared Leto. He literally just is Skeletor on the screen. And one of the people wonder about the laugh. He does laugh a lot. He doesn't do the cackly laugh, but they do play into a joke with the laugh, which again I think is put in there to kind of ease a bit of tension for younger kids. You'll see what I mean if you go and see this, which I highly recommend people do see this, because it is great fun. It really is. And if you grew up watching the original, you will probably really get a kick out of this. I mean, there was 3 people just about 3 seats over from me two guys and a girl. I think they were Spanish, because every now and again they were speaking Spanish, and then sometimes they weren't. But even they were recognized, and they were like older. Like, they're not in their 40s, and they looked like they were in their early, maybe mid-30s. And they were, even the woman was recognizing the characters and stuff. And it was like, here's people who obviously grew up watching this stuff, or at least maybe even the Dolph Lundgren movie. That will be one of the things you are probably wondering and have seen. Is Dolph Lundgren in this? Does he make a cameo? Yes, he does. And it is a good cameo, which what he does in it, he says something which comes back around later. So it's not like they just threw him in there for the sake of throwing him in there. And for anyone who's never seen his movie, it got a good little chuckle out of me, is he does the Good Journey thing that he did in the original movie. You know, where he puts out the kind of the two fingers and holds his hand out. He does that to our new Prince Adam. But their interaction was great. And again, it wasn't this just put it in there for a cheap, oh, do you remember him as He-Man? He's there for a purpose. And it comes back around. It's great. And they really do try and make it feel as much as the cartoon, as well as trying to make it something that older people can enjoy, younger people can enjoy. And obviously, it's live action and how to raise stakes and stuff. But I had a great time. I really did. I had a blast with this. I don't know how it's actually going to perform at the box office. I think it will be a massive disappointment if it fails at the box office, because, yeah, the post-credits away, well, the mid and the post-credits scene absolutely set up a sequel. The whole movie on its own does not do that. So when it ends, it ends. Your story has ended. But then the post-credit and mid-credit scenes set up the sequel. So I highly recommend this. If you grew up watching the cartoon, you're gonna love this. I really think you're gonna love this. And if you liked or even loved the original Dolph Lundgren movie, again, I think you're gonna love this. Battle Cat, when he becomes Battle Cat, is great as well. The joke with him becoming Battle Cat was great. The Sorceress, of course, is in here, played by Monica. I can never pronounce her second name. There's not quite as much as her as you would think, but she does play a good part in this as well. And she was another standout moment later in the movie. So, if you've seen it, what did you think of it? Or has any of the reviews swayed you away? Oh, that's one thing I should actually mention, now that I'm thinking of it. All the bullshit that the director has been coming out and saying, Travis Knight and a few of the cast members with all their masculinity and toxic masculinity and all this bullshit. Yeah, it's all bullshit. There's none of that in there. In fact, they really focus in on the macho, muscle-bound people. They really do. Like, not as in like, oh, they're all idiots and stuff. No, it plays a massive part of this world. And it makes sense, and they acknowledge it. So this toxic masculinity and shit, even with Skeletor, when Travis Knight said he's the embodiment of toxic, it's all bullshit. It's absolutely none of that shit is there. There is truly no real wokeness in there, except for what I think they did as a piss take is Adam's boss on Earth, who's like on screen, I think, for a total of like 3 minutes. If even. So, again, highly recommend it. If you've seen it, let us know. If you plan to see it, let us know. Now that if you're watching this review and you've made it this far, you now know that all the toxic masculinity bullshit is bullshit. If that had made you question whether or not to see it, hearing that, does this make you want to see it more? Let me know. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like and share and subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.